In simplest terms, basketball terms that is, Jamal Crawford's a bucket. And if you're unfamiliar with that term, I don't know who is, but if you're unfamiliar, its meaning ought to be pretty obvious. Somebody who scores with ease, often in a variety of ways. Not many did it any easier than Crawford. We'll get to some specifics in a moment. Before getting to those, I'll note these. His 19,414 points are top 60 all-time, ahead of, among others, Scottie Pippen and Isaiah Thomas. And he could get them in bunches. Do our research on a unique career. While with the Bulls in 2003, he was on the floor for Michael Jordan's final game in Chicago. Crawford picked up his only win in 4 tries head-to-head. Both players scored 11. His final tap game. 16 years later, linked to Jordan again. The last time we saw Crawford in an NBA game, April of last year. He dropped a casual 51. In doing so, at age 39, he broke Jordan's NBA record as the oldest man ever to score 50 or more in a game. That game with Phoenix marked Crawford's 4th game scoring 50, all of which occurred with different franchises. The 3-time 6th man of the year, only player in NBA history to record a 50-point game with 4 different teams. The list of players who have had their foot in the contemporary game that can also straddle Michael Jordan's era is a pretty short list. We're joined by one of them now. It's Jamal Crawford. And Jamal, over your right shoulder, there's a picture of Jordan in a Wizards uniform and you in a Bulls uniform. And that last game he ever played in Chicago was against the Bulls. You're there. You're part of it. You take me back to being a young guy in the league, and here's one of the all-time greats, like memories and moments that you shared with him. What comes to mind?
Just unbelievable. At that moment when the picture was taken, I already had a relationship with him, already had worked out with him, been to his house, been in a commercial with him. And all those wonderful things, when you have, my favorite player ever growing up and the best player ever taking an interest in you, it gives you a different kind of confidence, and he was somebody I could lean on and talk to about anything. And once he said he liked my game and, how I was progressing, it didn't matter what anybody else said to me. I had the confidence I needed to have a successful career.
How do you approach someone that you view in that regard when you're a young guy trying to break through and not feel like you're going to get maybe a cold shoulder or whatever? What was your approach?
Well, actually what happened was my dad, when I was going through the draft process, he was like, MJ likes your game. I'm like, Dad, please, this is before social media. How would you know that, right? And then I get drafted by the Bulls. I know Tim Grover. He calls me one morning at 6:30 in the morning. He's like, hey, MJ said you can meet him. I'm like, really? So I drive down there as quick as I can get there. I get there about 7 a.m. MJ had been there since 6 a.m. working out. And I'll never forget, he was doing defensive slide drills. And he was in the weight room with just myself, him, and Tim Grover. And we're talking. He's like, hey, this summer you can work out with me. And I'm like, okay. And I remember driving back, going home. I couldn't believe that I just met Michael Jordan. And our relationship took off from that next summer. I worked out with him all the time and played together all the time. And, we still have a relationship to this day.
For the young people that are in the game, and it's fascinating. I must have said this 100 times throughout the process of this last dance. I realized for the younger folks, they didn't see him. They just didn't see him. What would you say to them that you'd want them to understand? I mean, the documentary gives us a great glimpse, but that you experienced, what would you want them to understand about what was different about this dude?
How driven he was. A lot of guys are talented. A lot of guys have a lot of athletic ability. They have a high IQ. They have toughness. They have a will to win. But his was on a different level in every aspect. Even the greatest players may have 10 superpowers. This guy had 23 superpowers, right? So he could give anything. And he didn't try to convince people that he was the greatest. He just wanted to chase it and be the greatest and be the best version of themselves. And he was Michael Jordan every single night. I think the young generation is getting a chance to see that.
For the modern-day player, free agency is different. Friendships across teams are different. Is there enough room in people's heart for the hate that is required to have the singular focus that Jordan had? Does it exist now?
I'm not sure it does, to be honest with you. It was just a different time back then. You get a chance to meet so many different guys in the AAU circuit. Now with social media, you can connect with a guy who lives across country from you and stay in contact with him. At that time, you're kind of from where you were from and stay in that area. You may see one guy at a camp one time and then maybe see him in college and kind of have that relationship. But it's just a different time. And, with him, I just feel like he would have found a way to be who he was going to be regardless. So no matter what time period, no matter what was going on, he was going to be who he was.
All right, let's get you a job on the way out here. Kenny Mayne's your guy, Seattle guy, and I've been on social media. I've been active as well. Look, I know you turned 40. You don't look a day over 20, but I know you could still go out and get 40. When the NBA comes back, you're still ready to go? Like, I mean, you're still a bucket, I'm sure. Can we get you a job? What's the daily that you're working on?
Well, I turned 20 twice. I didn't turn 40.
I understand.
I'm still ready to go. I still feel great. I'm working out every single day. I feel really, really good. I'm excited. If the opportunity, comes, I'll be ready for sure, and I'll still be a bucket, as you said.
All right. Well, I mean, look, shooters shoot. Buckets are always buckets. Scorers never stop scoring. But if the end has come, I mean, we've seen how hard it is for a guy like Jordan to walk away. If it is a wrap for you, 19,000 and some odd points, are you at peace with it if the book is written?
I'm at peace because I have my family on the other side of that. I have a whole nother chapter I can get to, and eventually I will get to regardless. So I feel like I can't lose. I'm not sure I'll ever necessarily get over it. Feel like you're supposed to be out there and seeing, your peers say all those wonderful things about you. So, that part I'll be at peace with either way. I feel like I can't really lose. They're two great options. I just hope to be out there one more time.
Well, stay healthy. I know you're never going to stop working at it, and I have to believe the phone will ring whenever the NBA gets back because a guy like you could certainly help a team that's trying to get over the hump, man. It's always good to talk, and I wish you all the very best. Thanks for taking a little bit of time to visit with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Scott. Anytime. Appreciate you.
Coming up, we'll dive into